The smoke and the cry. The battlefield was burning, filled with smoke, broken machines, and the smell of blood. Explosions shook the ground, and soldiers from both sides shouted in anger and fear. A lone human soldier moved slowly between the ruins. His name was Daniel, but here on the front lines people only called him the Ghost. He had survived more battles than anyone expected. Still, tonight felt different. The air was heavy, the sky dark, and the screams carried deep into his bones. Daniel pressed his back against a broken wall, trying to breathe through the thick smoke. His rifle was low on bullets and his energy was fading. He told himself he just needed to survive until morning. But then, he heard it. It was not the sound of guns. It was not the voice of men. It was something else. A small, soft cry. At first, Daniel thought it was his mind playing tricks. No child could survive in this deadly place. Yet the sound came again, faint, fragile, and full of fear. His heart tightened. He turned his head toward the broken street, where smoke curled around the ruins. Impossible, he whispered to himself. But his feet started moving. He left the safety of the wall and stepped into the open. His instincts told him to stay low, to avoid the drones scanning the skies. His soldier's mind screamed, "Don't do it." But the human in him could not ignore that cry. The deeper he went, the clearer it became. The cry was not human. It was higher, lighter, like a song mixed with pain. Daniel crouched beside a collapsed building. There, hidden under broken stones, he saw movement, something small, trembling, alive. Daniel's breath caught. It was a child, but not a human child. She was tiny, her skin pale blue with faint silver lines glowing softly in the dark. Her eyes, wide and wet, were too large for her fragile face. Dust covered her hair and her thin arms shook as she tried to move but could not. A heavy piece of metal trapped her legs. She cried again, and the sound pierced through Daniel's chest like a blade. He froze. Saving her meant risking everything. If enemy soldiers saw him with her, they would kill him instantly. Even his own army might not forgive him for helping an alien. She was not just from the other side. She was from a species everyone feared. But Daniel could not turn away. He knelt, down, pressing his hand gently against the stone. "Shh," he whispered, his voice calm, steady, even though his heart raced. "I've got you. Don't be afraid." The alien girl blinked at him, her eyes glowing brighter. For a moment, her crying stopped. She stared at the human soldier, as if trying to understand. Slowly, she reached out a small hand and touched his arm. Her fingers were cold and shaking. That simple touch broke the last of his hesitation. Daniel dropped his rifle beside him and used both hands to lift the heavy metal. The weight crushed against his muscles, his arms trembling, but he refused to stop. He groaned, pushed harder, and finally shifted the debris enough to pull her free. The girl gasped in pain, her body curling close to him as he lifted her gently into his arms. She was so light, like carrying a bundle of feathers. He could feel her heartbeat racing against his chest. Just then, bang! A shot whistled past his ear, slamming into the wall behind him. Daniel ducked low, holding the child tight. Enemy soldiers had spotted movement. Shouts echoed across the street, followed by footsteps. Daniel's mind raced. He had no bullets to waste, no safe shelter nearby. His only choice was to run. With the alien girl clutched in his arms, he dashed into the shadows, moving between fire and falling rubble. Each step was a gamble. Each breath was a prayer. The girl whimpered softly, burying her face into his chest. Daniel tightened his grip. "Don't worry," he whispered, even though his lungs burned. "I'll get you out. I promise." Behind them, the sounds of the hunt grew louder. Soldiers shouted orders, drones buzzed in the air, and laser fire lit up the smoke. Daniel knew he had just made himself the most wanted man on the battlefield, but as he ran, he realized something strange, something terrifying and beautiful. That tiny alien girl had trusted him, a human stranger, with her life. And now, he felt something awaken inside him too, a purpose stronger than fear, louder than war. He was no longer fighting for survival. He was fighting for her. And in the heart of a deadly battlefield, under smoke and fire, a promise was born. Daniel would risk everything, even his life, because he could not let her die. The tiny survivor Daniel's boots splashed through puddles of blood and ash as he ran between broken walls. The tiny alien girl was pressed against his chest, her small body trembling with every explosion. The battlefield behind them roared like a beast that would not rest. Bullets cut through the smoke. A drone's red eye glowed in the distance, searching for life. Daniel dropped low, hiding behind a fallen tank. His breath came fast, his arms tight around the girl. She was shaking, but she did not cry anymore. Her wide, glowing eyes stared at him, as if she trusted him completely. Daniel whispered, "Stay quiet, little one. Stay with me." The girl blinked slowly, her silver-lined skin shining faintly in the dark. Daniel studied her for the first time, now that they had a moment to breathe. She was no ordinary child. Her bones were delicate, almost too thin. Her small chest rose and fell fast, but she seemed stronger than she looked. Her hand clutched his shirt, refusing to let go. He thought of leaving her, just for a second. The war was not his fault, not his fight. Carrying her meant death. Yet when he imagined putting her down, something in his chest twisted painfully. He knew he couldn't. Suddenly, her lips moved. Daniel froze. She was trying to speak. At first, only broken sounds came out mixed with fear and pain. Then, in a voice soft like wind through glass, she whispered a word. Protect. Tor. Daniel's heart jumped. She had spoken in his language, at least a part of it. Somehow she understood him. "You're safe now," he whispered back, his voice shaking. "I'll protect you." The girl blinked again, then buried her face in his chest, as if his words were enough to silence her fear. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had fought through countless battles, seen soldiers die screaming, but nothing had ever touched him like this small alien child whispering that single word. The sound of metal footsteps pulled him back to reality. Enemy soldiers. They were sweeping the ruins, moving closer. Daniel crouched low and moved quickly through an alley, holding the girl tight. He could hear her breathing fast, but she stayed silent. They passed broken homes, shattered windows, and streets painted with ash. The war had turned everything into a graveyard. He needed shelter, somewhere to hide, somewhere the scanners couldn't find them. He spotted a ruined bunker, half buried under collapsed stone. With careful steps, he slipped inside, lowering himself into the dark. The air smelled of dust and old blood, but at least it was quiet. He set the girl gently on the ground. She winced, her small hands shaking as she touched her injured leg. Daniel knelt beside her, pulling out a torn cloth from his pocket. He wrapped it around her wound as best he could. She bit her lip, making no sound, though her eyes filled with tears. "You're tough," Daniel muttered, his voice rough. "Stronger than most soldiers I've seen." She looked at him again, those glowing eyes filled with something he couldn't name. Gratitude, trust, maybe even hope. For the first time since the war began, Daniel felt human again, but the danger was far from over. Outside, heavy boots marched past. The enemy was close. The girl stiffened, her little hand grabbing his arm. Daniel held his breath, pressing a finger to his lips. The soldiers stopped right outside the bunker. Their voices were low but sharp, speaking in an alien tongue Daniel couldn't understand. One of them laughed coldly, the sound echoing through the ruined street. A light beam swept across the entrance, passing just inches from where Daniel crouched. He held the girl tight, his hand over her head, shielding her from the glow. His heart hammered, each second stretching into eternity. If they stepped inside, he would have to fight, and he didn't have the bullets to win. Finally, after what felt like forever, the soldiers moved on. Their footsteps faded into the night. Daniel let out the breath he had been holding, his body trembling with relief. He looked down at the girl, who was staring at him with wide eyes. Slowly, she reached out and touched his face. Her fingers brushed his cheek, leaving behind a faint silver glow where her skin met his. Daniel froze. The glow lingered for a moment, sinking into his skin like light dissolving into water. He didn't understand it, but he felt warmth spread through him, strength filling his tired muscles. The girl whispered again, this time clearer, "Protect her." Daniel stared at her, realizing she was more than just a survivor. There was something inside her, something powerful, something worth killing for. If the armies out there knew he had her, they would hunt him to the ends of the world. And yet, he could not let her go. He tightened his grip on his rifle and whispered, "Then I'll be your protector, no matter what comes." The tiny alien girl's glowing eyes softened. For the first time, she managed a weak smile. Outside, the battlefield roared on. The war was far from finished. But in that ruined bunker, a human soldier and a fragile alien child shared a bond that was stronger than fear. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The dangerous rescue. The night was alive with fire. Bombs dropped in the distance, shaking the ground and sending dust down from the bunker roof. Daniel knew the quiet moment they had would not last. The enemy would keep searching, and sooner or later, they would find them. The tiny alien girl lay curled against his side, her silver-lined skin glowing faintly. Her injured leg was wrapped with his cloth bandage, but she still trembled in pain. Daniel wanted to give her food, water, anything, but he had nothing left. Only his strength and his promise. He looked at her and whispered, "We can't stay here, they'll come back, we need to move." Her glowing eyes blinked up at him. She did not speak, but her hand reached for his arm again, holding him as if she understood. That small gesture was enough to steel his resolve. Daniel lifted her into his arms once more and stepped carefully out of the bunker. The air outside was worse, thick with smoke, heavy with ash. The sky burned red as flares lit the ruins. Shadows of soldiers moved across the battlefield, searching, hunting. Daniel stayed low, moving between collapsed walls, his breath steady, his ears sharp. Every sound mattered now. One wrong step, and both of them were dead. The girl clung tightly to his chest, her face buried against him. Daniel could feel her small heartbeat racing fast. He whispered, "Quiet, little one. I won't let them take you." Suddenly, the sharp whine of a drone cut through the night. Daniel froze, ducking under the remains of a broken bridge. The red light swept across the street, crawling closer and closer. He pressed himself flat against the stone, holding the girl close. The drone stopped, hovering in the air like a predator. Daniel's jaw tightened. He reached for his last grenade. It was his only chance. He pulled the pin, whispered a silent prayer, and tossed it across the rubble. The explosion shook the street, lighting up the ruins. The drone turned instantly, drawn to the noise, its red eye flashing. Daniel did not waste a second. He sprinted, in the opposite direction, carrying the girl through the smoke while alarms echoed behind them. The enemy soldiers shouted, running toward the blast. Daniel's gamble had worked, for now. But he knew they would not stop until they caught him. He pushed forward, every step heavy, every breath burning in his chest. The girl's small arms squeezed tighter around him. He whispered, "Hold on. We're almost clear." But fate was cruel. From the corner of the street, 3 enemy soldiers appeared, their weapons raised. Daniel skidded to a stop, his heart pounding. There was no way to fight them head-on, not while carrying the girl. The soldiers shouted in their alien tongue, pointing at the child in his arms. Their eyes glowed with hunger, greed. They knew who she was. Daniel's grip tightened around her. He would not hand her over. Never. One soldier stepped forward, lowering his gun slightly as if offering him a chance to surrender. But Daniel saw the truth in his eyes. There was no mercy here. If he gave her up, she would suffer a fate worse than death. Daniel whispered to the girl, "Close your eyes." And then, he ran straight at them. The soldiers opened fire. Energy, bolts cutting through the air. Daniel zigzagged, his body moving faster than his mind. He slid behind a broken wall, firing his last bullets with deadly aim. One soldier dropped, his scream echoing. The other two charged forward. Daniel leapt over rubble, swinging the butt of his rifle into one's face. The man fell, blood spraying across the stones. The last soldier grabbed Daniel's arm, trying to rip the girl away. She cried out, her small voice sharp with terror. That sound unleashed something inside Daniel. With a roar, he drove his knife into the soldier's chest, twisting until the man fell lifeless at his feet. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of distant fire. Daniel stood over the bodies, breathing hard, the girl trembling in his arms. Her glowing eyes were wide, staring at the blood around them. She was afraid, not of him but of the world she had been born into. Daniel knelt down, brushing the dust from her face. "It's over. You're safe." She looked at him, tears shining like silver in her eyes. Then with a weak voice she whispered again, "Protect her." Daniel felt something shift deep inside him. He was no longer just a soldier on a battlefield. He was more. He was her shield, her guardian, her only hope. But as he held her, he noticed something else. The glow on her skin was stronger now, pulsing faintly, almost alive. When she touched his chest, he felt warmth spreading into him again, filling his tired body with strength. What was she? Who was she? Before he could think, a low rumble shook the ground. Heavy machines were approaching, armored transports, the kind that could wipe out everything in their path. Daniel's heart sank. The enemy was bringing reinforcements. He looked at the girl in his arms and knew the truth. They were not chasing him because he was a soldier. They were chasing him because of her. She was no ordinary child. She was something greater. And he had just painted a target on both of them. With no time to lose, Daniel whispered, "We need to keep moving." He held her close, his eyes hard with resolve. "Whatever you are, I'll protect you until my last breath." The girl pressed her small forehead against his chest, as if she understood, and in the middle of the burning battlefield, Daniel stepped into the shadows once again, hunted by an army carrying the most fragile life in the galaxy. The alien's secret. The ruins stretched endlessly before Daniel. Fires burned in the distance, and the cries of war never stopped. He moved carefully, carrying the tiny alien girl close to his chest. Every shadow felt like a trap, every sound a warning. She was light as air in his arms, but the weight of danger pressed heavy on him. The soldiers he killed would not be forgotten. Their brothers, their commanders, their machines. They would come, and they would not stop until they had her. Daniel ducked into a half-destroyed building. Its roof was gone, the walls cracked, but it was enough to hide for a while. He set the girl down gently on a pile of blankets that had once belonged to some poor family. Her glowing eyes followed him, wide and curious. She was hurt, exhausted, yet she never let fear consume her. Daniel knelt beside her, cleaning the dust from her face. He noticed again the strange silver lines on her skin, glowing brighter than before. "What are you?" he whispered softly, not expecting an answer. The girl tilted her head, then touched his hand with her small fingers. The glow spread where she touched, like light sinking into his skin. His body felt stronger, his wounds less painful. It was as if she was giving him something, sharing her strength. Daniel stared in shock. This was not natural. She was more than a child. "Protect her," she whispered again, her voice fragile but sure. Daniel's chest tightened. She trusted him without question. But why? Did she choose him, or was it desperation? He had no answers. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the silence, a high-pitched hum. Daniel froze. Daniel, he knew that sound. It was a scanner drone. He grabbed the girl quickly and pulled her against his chest, pressing himself against the wall. The hum grew louder, closer, until a red beam swept across the broken room. Daniel held his breath, praying. The shadows would hide them. But the girl did something unexpected. She raised her small hand and touched the air. The silver glow from her skin expanded, spreading like ripples across water. The beam of the drone bent away, as if the air itself pushed it aside. Daniel's eyes widened. The drone passed over the building without stopping, its scanners blind to them. Within seconds, the hum faded into the distance. Silence returned. Daniel stared at the girl, his heart pounding. You hit us." The child tilted her head, again her glowing eyes soft. She had protected them. Somehow she had power unlike anything he had seen. For the first time, Daniel understood why the enemy wanted her so badly. She was not just a survivor. She was a key, a weapon, maybe even something sacred, he whispered almost to himself. "They'll never stop. Not until they have you." The girl reached up again, touching his chest with her tiny hand. Her glow sank into him once more, filling him with warmth. She did not speak, but her eyes said everything. She believed in him. Daniel clenched his jaw. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The sound of engines rumbled in the distance, heavy machines rolling closer. Daniel peeked through a crack in the wall and saw them, armored transports crawling like beasts across the ruins. Searchlights cut through the night. Soldiers poured out, spreading across the battlefield. They were hunting, and they were close. Daniel's mind raced. If she had power, it meant she was even more valuable than he thought. But it also meant the risk was greater. If she fell into enemy hands, it would not just be her life lost. It could change the whole. Or he turned back to her. "Who are you?" His voice was low, urgent. For the first time, she tried to say more. Her lips moved, forming broken sounds in his language. "Eli, nah." Daniel leaned closer. "Elena? Is that your name?" She blinked and nodded weakly. "Elena." Daniel repeated it, testing the weight of it. "Elena." The name felt like light in the darkness. He looked at her. Truly looked. This was no ordinary child. Her glow, her strength, her ability to hide them from machines. It all meant something. And the way the soldiers had shouted when they saw her. They knew who she was. She was important, maybe a royal, maybe sacred to her people. That meant protecting her was more than a promise. It was a destiny. Engines roared closer. Daniel grabbed his rifle, though it was nearly empty. He lifted Elena into his arms once more, her small body clinging tightly to him. "Listen to me," he whispered. "I don't know why fate put you in my hands, but I'll get you out. I'll keep you safe, even if it kills me." Elena's tiny arms wrapped around his neck. She pressed her forehead against his chest, whispering again, "Protector." The word gave him strength. But outside, the night was no longer quiet. Floodlights swept across the ruins. Voices barked orders, and a new sound cut through the chaos. A deep, metallic howl. Daniel's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. It was a war beast, a machine made for hunting and tearing apart anything in its path. They had unleashed it to find him. There was no more time. Daniel took one last look at the fragile child glowing in his arms. The secret of who she was still a mystery, but one thing was clear. She was the reason this battlefield burned, and he was now her only shield. With his teeth clenched and his heart pounding, Daniel stepped out of the ruined building, into the darkness, into the hunt, hunted by shadows. The night was no longer silent. The battlefield was alive with the hunt. Searchlights cut across the ruins. Drones circled above, and armored transports crawled through the streets like iron beasts. Their engines shook the ground, and their sharp beams pierced every shadow. Daniel carried Elena close to his chest as he moved through the darkness. Her small body trembled, but she made no sound. Her silver glow dimmed as if she was hiding it, saving her strength. Everywhere he looked, shadows moved. Soldiers with rifles swept the alleys. The metallic howl of the war beast echoed through the ruins, its heavy claws scraping stone. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew that machine. It was made to track anything alive, and once it caught a scent, nothing escaped. He pressed his back against a wall, breathing quietly. The little alien girl lifted her glowing eyes to him. "Protector," she whispered, as if reminding him of his promise. Daniel forced a small smile, though his fear was real. "I'm here. I won't leave you." A spotlight swept across the street, passing only inches from them. Daniel ducked low, holding Alina tighter. He could hear boots hitting the ground nearby. The soldiers were closer now, their voices sharp, calling orders in a tongue he couldn't understand. He needed a way out. His eyes scanned the ruins until he saw a broken sewer grate half buried under rubble. It was small, almost too narrow, but it was their only chance. He whispered, "Hold on, Alina," and crawled quickly toward it. The grate was rusted and heavy, but Daniel pulled with all his strength. The metal screeched and his heart stopped. The sound echoed too loudly. He cursed under his breath and pushed Alina inside first, then slid in after her, lowering the grate back into place. The tunnel was dark, wet, and smelled of rot. Water dripped from above and rats scattered as they crawled through. Daniel carried her in his arms, his boots splashing quietly. The tunnel curved, leading them deeper into the earth, but the shadows followed. From above, the metallic howl grew louder. The war beast had caught their trail. Soldiers shouted and heavy footsteps pounded overhead. They were tracking him even underground. Alina clutched his shirt tightly, her small hands shaking. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, fear shining inside them. Daniel whispered, "Don't be afraid. I'll keep you safe." She pressed her forehead against his chest again, as if drawing strength from him. And strangely, Daniel felt stronger too. Her glow seeped into him, warming his tired body, giving him energy he should not have had left. The tunnel shook. Dust rained from above. The beast was tearing through the ground, following them. Daniel picked up his pace, his heart racing. At last, the tunnel opened into an old underground chamber, half collapsed but wide enough to hide. Daniel set Alina down gently on a stone ledge. He scanned the chamber, looking for weapons, traps, anything. But there was nothing here but rubble. The ground trembled again. The war beast was coming. Daniel turned back to Alina. She was breathing, fast. Her silver lines glowing brighter now. He knelt beside her. "Alina, listen to me. You're special. They want you for a reason. But I won't let them take you. Not while I breathe." Her small lips moved. She whispered, "Protector, promise?" Daniel's chest tightened. He touched her cheek softly. "Promise." The wall above them cracked, and with a deafening roar, the war beast dropped into the chamber. It was massive, twice the height of a man, its body armored in black steel, claws sharp as blades. Its red eyes locked on them instantly. The sound it made was not natural, a mix of machine and monster. Soldiers shouted above, waiting for the beast to finish its work. Daniel stood, rifle raised, though he knew his bullets would do little. He stepped in front of Alina, shielding her with his body. The beast lunged. Daniel fired, sparks bouncing off its armor. He rolled to the side, dragging Alina with him. The ground cracked where the claws struck. Dust filled the air. "Run," Daniel shouted, though there was nowhere to go. He fired again, aiming at the beast's joints, its eyes anywhere weak. For a moment it staggered, but then it roared and charged again. Daniel stumbled back, his body aching. His rifle clicked, empty. No bullets left. He pulled out his knife, holding it tight, ready to fight until the end. But then, Alina moved. She stepped forward, her small hands glowing brighter than ever. The silver lines across her skin blazed like fire. Daniel tried to pull her back, but she shook her head, her eyes fierce. The beast lunged at them. Alina raised her hands and a burst of light exploded from her body. The chamber shook with power. The beast roared, its claws slamming against an invisible shield. Sparks flew. The soldiers above shouted in confusion. Daniel shielded his eyes, stunned by the glow. Alina stood firm, her small frame glowing like a star. The beast clawed and clawed but could not break through. Daniel stared at her in awe. She was more than special. She was extraordinary. She was the reason the enemy wanted her. A weapon, a miracle. A secret the galaxy was willing to kill for. The glow weakened, and Alina staggered. Daniel caught her in his arms as she collapsed, her light fading. She had saved them, but the effort drained her completely. The beast staggered back, blinded and damaged, but not destroyed. Its red eyes glowed brighter with rage. It howled again, preparing to strike once more. Daniel held Alina close, knife in hand, and whispered, "I promised. I'll protect you." The chamber filled with shadows, the hunt closing in. And in that dark moment, Daniel knew their fight was only beginning. The bond of survival. The chamber was filled with smoke and dust. The war beast growled in the darkness, its red eyes glowing like fire. Daniel stood with his knife ready, holding Alina close to his chest. His body was tired, his strength fading, but his will was sharp. He had promised to protect her, and nothing would break that promise. The beast scraped its claws against the stone, preparing for another strike. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, his breath steady. He whispered to Alina, "Stay with me. Don't let go." Her glowing eyes opened weakly. She was pale, her light dim, but she managed to whisper one word again. "Protector." Daniel's heart tightened. That word gave him more strength than any weapon. The beast lunged. Daniel rolled to the side, clutching Alina tight. The claws tore into the wall, sending stones flying. Daniel stumbled to his feet, his legs burning, his knife shaking in his hand. He was just a man, bleeding, exhausted, alone. Against this machine, he should not have stood a chance, but he had something more powerful than the beast. He had her. Alina's glow flared faintly against his chest. It wasn't much, but Daniel felt warmth spread through his body again. His heartbeat steadied. His muscles felt lighter. She was giving him strength, even as weak as she was. Daniel whispered, "We fight together." The beast roared, charging again. Daniel waited, knife ready. At the last moment, he sidestepped and drove the blade into the joint of its armored leg. Sparks exploded. The beast stumbled, roaring in fury. Daniel pulled the knife free and moved back, protecting Alina from the falling rubble. It wasn't a killing blow, but it was enough to slow the monster. The soldiers above shouted angrily, their searchlights sweeping the chamber. They had seen the fight, seen the child's glow. Daniel knew what it meant. More hunters would come, stronger, faster. He couldn't stay here. With one last look at the staggering beast, Daniel pulled Alina close and ran toward a collapsed tunnel on the far side of the chamber. The opening was narrow, barely wide enough, but it was a way out. The beast clawed at the ground, struggling to rise, its growl echoing behind them. Daniel crawled through the rubble, his arms bleeding, his back burning, but he didn't stop. On the other side, the tunnel opened into a dark cavern. It was quiet, here, away from the sounds of engines and war. He collapsed against the stone floor, breathing hard. Alina lay weak in his arms, her head resting against his shoulder. She looked so fragile, yet she had faced down a monster no human could defeat. Daniel brushed the dust from her silver-lined skin. "You saved me," he whispered. Her lips curved, faintly, almost a smile. "Protector, saved me." Daniel felt his throat tighten. She wasn't just a mission. She wasn't just a child caught in war. She was someone who saw him not as a soldier, not as a killer, but as a guardian. For the first time in years, he felt like more than a weapon. He set her down gently on the stone floor and tore his sleeve to make a better bandage for her injured leg. She watched him quietly, her glowing eyes soft. When he finished, she reached out a tiny hand and touched his cheek. The warmth spread again, brighter this time. His cuts stung less, his breathing steadied. He realized something. Her power wasn't only to protect, it was also to heal. Daniel whispered, "You're not just a survivor, Alina. You're hope." She didn't answer with words, but her eyes said enough. The cavern grew colder. Daniel looked around. The roof was cracked, water dripping down, forming pools on the floor. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly like Alina's markings. Daniel frowned. This place was old, maybe sacred. He wondered if Alina knew it, or if it was only chance that they had ended up here. She reached out to the carvings, her small fingers tracing them. The glow on her skin pulsed in rhythm with the symbols, as if the place recognized her. Daniel watched in silence, realizing she truly belonged to something far greater than he could understand. But their peace did not last. A sharp sound echoed through the tunnel, the metallic howl of the beast. It was not dead. It was following. And behind it, Daniel could hear the faint thunder of more soldiers marching. They had little time. Daniel picked Alina up again, holding her close. His voice was firm, steady, even though his fear clawed at him. "Listen to me, Alina. We'll keep moving. No matter what happens, I'll never let them take you. You and me, we survived together." Her arms wrapped weakly around his neck. "Together," she whispered. Daniel tightened his grip, his jaw hard. In that single word, he heard more than a child's voice. He heard trust, hope, and the bond that tied them together. As the shadows grew, Daniel stepped deeper into the cavern, hunted by machines, hunted by men, carrying the most fragile and powerful life in his arms, and with every step, their bond grew stronger, because survival was no longer about him alone. It was about them, together. The final stand. The cavern shook as the metallic howl of the war beast echoed closer. Dust fell from the ceiling, cracks spread across the stone, and the sound of marching boots thundered through the tunnels. The enemy was coming from every side. Daniel held Alina tightly in his arms, his breath steady but his heart heavy. There was no escape left. He had run through ruins, fought soldiers, bled against machines. Now the shadows closed in, and he stood at the edge of the cavern, nowhere left to go. The broken walls glowed faintly with ancient markings, their light reflecting in Alina's silver eyes. She looked fragile, her small hands gripping his shirt, but her gaze held something deeper. "Faith. Protector," she whispered, her voice soft but unshaken. Daniel nodded, his jaw hard. "Always." The first enemy soldiers stormed into the cavern. Their rifles gleamed, their eyes hungry. Behind them, the war beast crawled through the rubble, its steel claws sparking against the stone. Red light filled the chamber as the machines scanned, hunting. Daniel set Alina gently behind him and stood tall. His rifle had no bullets left. His knife was dull with blood, but his spirit burned like fire. He was only one man, yet he felt stronger than an army. Not because of weapons, because of her. The soldiers raised their guns. Daniel roared and charged forward. He fought like a storm, his blade slashing, his fists breaking bone. He dodged blasts, used rubble as cover, and struck with every ounce of strength he had left. Blood sprayed across the cavern floor, but for every soldier he cut down, more filled the chamber. The war beast moved in, its red eyes glowing brighter. It swiped its claws, smashing stone into dust. Daniel rolled away, dragging a soldier into its path. The beast tore the man apart in one strike, but it did not stop. It wanted Alina. Daniel's lungs burned, his arms heavy. He was losing. He knew it. Yet he refused to step back. "Come and take me," he shouted, his voice echoing across the cavern. "But you'll never have her." The beast lunged, claws aimed at Daniel's chest. At that moment, Alina screamed. Her voice was not weak anymore. It was sharp, full of power. The glow from her body exploded, flooding the cavern with silver light. The soldiers cried out, blinded. The beast staggered, its claws scraping against the glowing shield that surrounded Daniel and Alina. Sparks flew as metal struck light, but the shield did not break. Daniel turned, staring at her in awe. Alina stood on shaky legs, her small body blazing with silver fire. The ancient markings on the walls glowed brighter, answering her light, as if the cavern itself had awakened. She raised her hands, and the glow spread wider, pushing back the soldiers. Their rifles burned hot in their hands, forcing them to drop their weapons. The beast roared, but its claws could not pierce the shield. Daniel's eyes widened. "Alina," It's you. You're the key. Her voice, though small, carried across the cavern. Together. Daniel understood. She was not fighting alone. She was giving him her power, her strength. Their bond had become a weapon stronger than steel. He grabbed his knife once more, feeling energy flow through him, his muscles alive with her glow. The beast lunged again, and this time Daniel did not dodge. He met it head-on, his blade striking its joints where the armor was weakest. Sparks and blood-red light burst as the knife sank deep. The beast roared, thrashing, but Daniel held firm. "This ends now," he shouted, driving the blade deeper. With one final push, the machine collapsed, crashing to the ground in a storm of sparks. The soldiers, blinded and broken, stumbled back in fear. They had seen enough. None dared to face the protector and the glowing child. One by one they retreated, dragging the wounded with them, leaving only silence behind. Daniel dropped to his knees, his chest heaving. He looked at Alina, her glow dimming as exhaustion overcame her. She stumbled forward and he caught her in his arms. Her small voice trembled. "Safe?" Daniel smiled weakly, pressing his forehead against hers. "Safe, as long as I breathe." She closed her eyes, resting against him, her tiny hand clutching his shirt. Daniel looked around the cavern, at the broken beast, at the retreating soldiers, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Victory, not for himself, but for her. The battlefield outside still burned. The war was not over. But in this moment, in this cavern, one man had stood against an army, not for glory, not for orders, but for a child who believed in him. Daniel whispered, into the silence, his voice steady. "You're not alone anymore, Alina. You'll never be alone again." And as the cavern grew quiet, as the shadows faded, the bond between a human soldier and a tiny alien girl shone brighter than any weapon. It was not the end of their journey. It was only the beginning.